everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. So I have done a number of tutorials on exercise form, and I've done kind of the big stuff, right? How to squat, how to deadlift, how to push, how to pull. But there's definitely a lot of other exercises that I don't necessarily think need a full video by themselves, but could definitely use a little form recap. So today, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Yesterday, I went on Instagram and I asked, what exercises do you need help with? I got a ton of responses, and today we are gonna break every single one of those down. If we get to an exercise where I've already broken down that form, make sure you scroll down below and I will leave the video link below. All right, let's do it. Okay, let's start right at the top of the list with mountain climbers. I guess I don't need help, I just hate them. I'm gonna be honest, if you hate them, don't do them. They're a fine exercise. I do think that they're pretty overrated, and I think there's a lot of other better options out there, but just in case someone wants it broken down, mountain climbers. So the biggest mistake that I see with these is that the hands are too far forward, okay? So you wanna make sure those hands are screwed into the ground, right underneath the armpits, micro bend in the elbows, and spiral those elbows back. From here, just start it slow, bringing one knee into the chest without arching or curving your back, and also keeping your hips steady. From there, you can start to speed it up. And then you can start to speed it up more. Again, I think it's kind of an overrated exercise. It's fine. I use it sometimes like for fun, but it's definitely not something that you need to like make a staple of your workout program. Split squats or lunges. My knees point inward, so these are difficult for me. I have videos on both of those. I will leave them linked down below. But if you do find that your knee is trekking inwards, I would actually make sure that you are starting with some mobility drills and some glute activation drills that help you just bring your femur so it's not internally rotated. Femur is this leg bone right here. And I have a whole nother video right up here that you can check out. I will also link that down below. Overhead squats. This is a fun variation on a normal squat. Let's break down the form first, and then I'm gonna show you a drill that can help improve it. So you're gonna start with those weights overhead, making sure that you can even control this portion of it. So we to press the hips forward, pull the ribs down. Then in our normal squat position, we'll take an inhale, and then exhale, press it back up. It's a challenging exercise because you really need a lot of great core support, shoulder stability, overhead mobility. I showed this drill before, but if you are lacking overhead mobility, you can do a floor slide. I'm not gonna break it down super specifically. I will link this video down below as well, but that's gonna help improve your overhead mobility. Hip bridges. I guess I've never broken down a bridge before. All right, let's do it. So on your back, you wanna make sure your feet are about hip width apart, toes and knees pointed forward. Take a big inhale. On your exhale, drive through the feet, pressing the hips up. I want you to think like you're squeezing a $100 bill between your butt cheeks rather than trying to get your hips up as high as possible. I also want you to imagine that you have a yoga block between your inner thighs, so you're pushing in on that imaginary block without letting the knees cave in, all right? So we bring it down, exhale, press it up. Ooh, a snatch. I'm gonna show you kettlebell and dumbbell. So first is a dumbbell version. I always recommend starting with this one if you are trying to learn a snatch because it is just going to be a little less complex with your wrist. So starting with one arm, feet are about hip width apart. We're gonna send the booty back into our hinged position. From here, I'm gonna show you slow motion first. We are zipping up our winter coat above our head. Okay, and then we flip that wrist at the top. From here, I like to bring it to the shoulder and then re-hinge down. So in real time, big inhale, drive the floor down, power up to the shoulder and down. You can also, if you're using a heavier weight, add a little bit more of a hop in there or a heel drive down, getting even more of the legs, and that's your dumbbell snatch. Now, if you're using a kettlebell, I would definitely work up to this. There's a whole progression that I have actually within the Fit Club, which is my unlimited membership, but we're just gonna break down the snatch here in case you've already kind of gone through your progressions. So I like to start with the kettlebell in between the arches of the feet for a dead snatch, and I point the bell toward whatever side I'm using, right? So I'm using, this is my right side, so I'm gonna point the bell toward my right toe. So same thing, we're gonna send it back. From here, as I come up, I wanna think of driving my elbow back before I bring the weight up, okay? That's gonna be key to make sure that the weight is sliding close to the body rather than swinging out and then flopping over your wrist. So locking the lats down, big inhale, elbow back, bring it up. That was still a little floppy, but it's kind of because this is a lighter weight for me. Big inhale, exhale. So noticing, I'll try and replay it in slow-mo, how my elbow cranks back, okay? A good drill for this, just to practice that for even cleans, is a catch, okay? So you're just practicing driving that elbow back. And that's your snatch. Thoracic anything. I actually messaged this person just to make sure. So this person has limited thoracic mobility, which is your mid-back. Two things to work on here. I would first actually just start with some cat-cows and really focus on slowing down and thinking of isolating every single vertebrae in your spine, segmenting every single part of your spine, okay? And really think of exaggerating it. That's step one, and that's just going to work on your thoracic flexion and extension. Now your thoracic spine also moves in rotation, which is really important. So my favorite drill for that is a T-spine rotation. We're gonna untuck the toes, widen the knees, hands come down, booty sits back on the heels. That's gonna be really important to make sure we're not twisting from the low back and we're twisting from that mid back. From here, we'll bring the right hand around the ribs. Big inhale. Exhale, press the floor down as we twist to the right. Booty stays back. Big exhale. Let's do it 2 more times on this side. Big inhale. And exhale, press, twist. Make sure you're taking your focus with you. 1 more time. Inhale. Big exhale, twist, pressed. That was in English. And then you'll come back to the center and you would do that on each side. If you are really looking to actually make significant improvements to your mobility, you have to be consistent. Even if you do those 2 things 3 to 5 days a week, I mean, you could do that when you're watching TV at the end of the night. You can do it when you're waiting for your coffee to brew in the morning, whatever it is, but you just have to be consistent. Overhead press. I have a video on that. I will leave it linked below. Sumo squats, chest up or slight lean. This is a great question and it's gonna kind of depend on what your focus is. Let me show you how I coach them. You know, it's also gonna depend on where your weight is sitting. Like, are you holding a goblet? Are you holding it low? Are you holding it in the shoulders? I typically hold it low if I'm doing sumo. I don't do a lot of sumo position. But let's break it down. So let's say you're holding the weight low. Think of it halfway between an upright squat, so like a plie squat, and then a hinge or a deadlift, right? So I'm gonna take a little slight lean and then bring it back up. Slight lean and bring it back up. So really just think like split the difference between your hinge and your full upright squat. But again, so much of this is also gonna be determined by where you're holding the weight, what you're trying to focus on, but that's how I like to coach them. Split squats, again, I have a video on that. Struggling to keep my hips in line. The hip on the back leg drops down with each rep. It sounds like you need to keep your front glute on a lot more. I want you to think of pushing this hip down and then pushing your back hip forward, okay? And you should feel that glute ignite and really work slow, even if you have to like hold on to something. So again, if we find that this back hip is popping down, push down and forward, and really focus on driving through that front glute, okay? But then again, I have a whole video on it, so check that out if you want. Lateral lunge, yeah, lots of things on side lunges, lateral lunges. This is one of my favorite exercises, so let's break it down. I always like to do not always, I prefer to do the weight down low in front, and I also think you can load it more and you have more control, and it's gonna be less strain on the low back. If I'm stepping over to the right, stepping over, I'm gonna send the hips back like I'm in a bent over row or a hinge position, okay? Most of my weight is on this side foot, toe is to the front, knee is to the front. We push back up, bring it back together. Most important thing here is that we're sending the weight into the booty and the toes stay forward to protect the knees. You do not want to do this with the toes turned out, way too much pressure on the knees. Bulgarian split squat, I have a video on those. Single leg deadlift. I know I have normal deadlifts. Let's break this down because it's one of my favorites. Starting body weight, hands on the hips, one leg on the floor, one leg behind. The most important thing here is that we are keeping tension through the legs. So we're gonna take a slight bend in that supporting leg, press something heavy behind you, okay? Send the hips back, keep your chest lifted, and then you're gonna pull something heavy back in. So again, you have to keep tension in those legs. Otherwise, you're just kind of flying through, right? You're not really doing anything. For progressions with this, I would say start with a hand on something for some support, then go to body weight, and then add one weight in the opposite arm to kind of work that counterbalance. You don't need a ton of weight here to feel it, but it's one of my favorites. Plank kick through, if that's what it's called. I'm gonna assume I know what you mean here. So I like to start these from a bear plank. Same thing like our mountain climbers, hands right under the armpits, press the floor away, spiral the elbows back, big inhale, exhale, drive the knees up. From here, you're gonna bring your whole body weight around and sit down into the shoulder socket, okay? The biggest mistake I see is that people don't twist enough. You've got to change your entire center of gravity to make these work, okay? Honestly, the best regression for this, in my opinion, is just working on getting comfortable with 3 limbs on the floor. So whatever that means to you, okay? So working from 4 limbs to 3, and then getting comfortable starting to shift that body weight. Pull up, I have a whole video on pull-ups. Single leg bridge, so I've already shown you the bilateral bridge. Let's do single leg. I like to bring one leg up, either arms up or down. You can use that for both bridge options. Big inhale. Exhale, drive into that foot and press the hips up. And this is the exact same thing. We want to think of squeezing $100 bills between the butt cheeks, squeezing that imaginary yoga block between the legs. And again, if you can't control that, bring both feet down. Plank rows, like a renegade row, I'm assuming. This is another exercise like mountain climbers. I think it's overrated. I use it sometimes because I think it can be fun, but if you don't like them, honestly, there's so many other better anti-rotation plank exercises in my opinion, so take it or leave it. I like to make sure weights are a little closer than you think, and then legs are a little wider than you think they should be. So this is kind of like a tripod stance, right? It's gonna give you more support. Making sure you're in full plank position, big inhale. Exhale, swing the weight back to the hip, and down. So the goal here is to resist moving your hips. So as I bring that weight up, I'm thinking push right hip down, and then opposite, push the left hip down. If that's too tough, bring it down to the knees, and if you hate it, don't do it. Building the strength or form to rack weights properly and without pain. Like putting the weights back on the rack. I should have asked what this person meant. If you're this person, shoot me a DM or leave it in the comments. But if we're thinking of like putting weight back, you kind of want to put it back the same way that you would do an exercise, right? Like for me, I'm gonna put my weights back lower. So instead of like doing it like a gremlin, do it like a deadlift, right? Use what you're training and put it in daily life. Curtsy lunge. I don't think that I've ever done that one. I have talked about it before. I don't love curtsy lunges for the majority of the population because I find that people get really messed up with their knee tracking, and I just think like, I would rather teach people to do a lateral lunge, but anyway, you can hold weights forever. Goblet, front rack, down by your sides, doesn't matter. So we're gonna start with the feet facing the front. I like to take a slight turn out in the toes just for better knee tracking. We're gonna take one foot, step it behind you. Notice that the knees are tracking out just a bit. Bring it back up. Bring it back. Bring it back up. Again, if that's too difficult for you, I would actually prefer a lateral lunge. You can also regress either of those to a curtsy squat or a lateral squat, meaning that the feet don't move, they don't lunge, they squat. Planks, hard to get my very upper back in correct form during them. I have talked about this at some point, but we're gonna do it again because I have no idea what video that's in. So we're kind of talking about this thoracic extension within our planks. I'm gonna show you on the forearms, but a lot of times I see this with our planks, right? Where we have this really big arch in the upper back. So what I'm looking for in a plank is mid-back extension, but hips tucked under to engage that front line. So I want you to actually start this on the knees. Forearms, knees in this position. Make sure that the booty isn't arched. So we're gonna tuck the hips under and then extend that mid back, okay? So think press the floor away. And as you do that, you might lose the low back. So retuck, you might lose the upper back. Repress, okay? It's gonna take a while to get this form. From here, pinch the floor between the elbows and knees. From here, lift the knees up an inch. You are gonna feel a ton of front line activation, which is the point of the exercise. An alternate exercise for lunges. Try split squats, I have a whole video on it. Push-ups, I have a whole video on it. Deadlifts, I have a whole video on it. That's it, but I did have way back a comment on another video that actually sparked the idea for this video, and it was skull crushers. No one said it, but we're gonna break them down. Skull crushers, you're gonna grab your weight, place your feet on the ground, tuck your hips under so your low back is connected. From here, we're gonna keep the upper arm exactly where it is, right over the shoulder socket, okay? Then we're gonna bend at the elbow. That lower arm makes the weights come back to crush your skull, and then we extend back up. A lot of times with skull crushers, I see this, where we're kind of moving the whole arm. I want you to extend and then press. And that's it. I hope you guys found that helpful. I have been wanting to make that video for a while. Obviously, got a little backed up with that $100 challenge we were doing. And by I mean I'm literally doing it right now, but you are seeing it later. If there are any other exercises you would like to see broken down, please leave them linked down below. And also remember guys, if you follow me on Instagram, you are more than welcome to always send me videos of you doing these exercises and asking for feedback on form. This channel and my platform is to help educate you guys and make you feel as confident as possible while moving your body. So definitely take advantage of that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already, and I will see you all in the next one.